It is an honor and a privilege to say a few words on Professor M.N. Vijayan. It is not for me to tell the people of Kerala how distinguished a figure he is as a writer, thinker, speaker, ideologue, and a friend of the masses. I had the opportunity of meeting him just once in his Kodungalur home, along with Razak Kotakkal and Joshi Joseph. I once spent a summer afternoon and evening with the man popularly and reverentially referred to as Vijayanmash. It is my misfortune that before I could meet him a second time, to partake of his wisdom, he left this world. But whatever remains in my mind, in my memory of that afternoon, I think I will carry it with me to my own grave. The appeal of the man was hypnotic, not in the sense of a magician, but that face, that radiance of the face, and the friendliness that such a man could have even for a stranger come from another city 1,000 miles away. It took him no time to make me a part of his family. Mrs. Vijayan would come and go, sometimes with water and something for us to eat. I remember that the few hours in that house very closely. Having said this, I have been asked to say a few words about the role of the artist, the place of art in a society at a time when things appear to be going downhill for the good, the simple, and the virtuous. My friends, it is quite evident that we are passing through difficult times in this land of ours. A certain majoritarian variety of politics has taken upon itself the duty of telling us what we are to think, how we are to dress, what we are to eat, whom we should revere from the annals of the history of this land, etc., etc., etc. When I was a student, which is decades ago, as you can well imagine, we were asked to write an essay on the pen is mightier than the sword. And it was only till the other day that I, perhaps in my naivety, thought that that is the truth, the unchallenged truth. All the Caesars, all the Napoleons, all the men in uniform, whether in brown shirts, giving all kinds of salutes, they were ultimately subdued by the strength of the word, more written than spoken. Spoken, I've said the word, somebody has heard it, he may or may not retain that for a certain amount of time, but the written word remains. Now, what is happening in India today is that what was a given truth till the other day, namely that the pen is mightier than the sword, that the man of violence ultimately would have to succumb to the strength of peace, of virtue, of wisdom, that thing has been, for the past few years, been shaken. What I'm trying to tell you is that a part of the people wielding the pen have, for whatever reason, gone over to the side of the violator of the basic human rights of large sections of the people in this country. Those who have been identified as not included in the majority. Now, has everybody gone over to the other side, become yes men of the people in power, doing the bidding of the people in power without any question? No. That is not true. This is too old a land, too large a country, too vast, too diverse for everybody to fall in line so easily out of fear or favor or whatever. I know that an august speaker will be giving the Vijayanmash Memorial Lecture, and I do not wish to stand for too long between you and the distinguished speaker. But I just want to give you a few concrete examples in support of my thesis. It is not just my thesis. Anybody with eyes to see, ears to hear, brains to register, knows that there are pockets of resistance, large pockets of resistance across the land to what the present dispensation is trying to force upon the people. I come from Calcutta. There is a newspaper by the name of a daily English language paper by the name of the Telegraph, which many of you may be aware of. For the past several years, the Telegraph has been fighting a battle of principles. It will perhaps give an element of added satisfaction to some of you that a son of Kerala, R. Rajagopal by name, is giving the leadership as the editor of the newspaper to a large group of young boys and girls who are letting Bengal and Eastern India especially know every morning that the battle, if you are to use that word, has only begun. Much more is to happen before everybody surrenders in this country. If you read, to come down to your region, southern part of the country, if you read the front line, the fortnightly brought out by the Hindu group, you get a similar experience. Facts and figures are being placed before readers in support of struggles for dignity and pride that are happening in different parts of the country. Sometimes those who are in power, they are spreading the total lie that the entire Hindi press has gone over to their side. You only have to know about the activities of Dainik Bhaskar, the mass circulation Hindi daily coming from so many centers in this country. You have only to know about how they are putting up their kind of resistance to the reign of lies and falsehoods and half-truths that has taken over the land. The artist, my friends, he will say the last word. Rabindranath Tagore, in 1905, when Curzon tried to divide Bengal by dividing the Hindus and the Muslims, but cited administrative reasons, he was able to stop with his poetry and his songs. And the institution of the Rakhi Bandhan ceremony between Hindus and Muslims, he took to the streets and he was able to stop Curzon from dividing Bengal. And I believe, as a student of history, that if history had been a bit more kind and allowed the Bard of Shantiniketan to be alive in 1947, all that we now hear about the partition and things like that, the story might have been different. A second time, the wise old man could have sung into the hearts of all the Hindus and all the Muslims, and all together they could have humbled the British. My friends, I know of a lot of people in Kerala who take great interest in Latin American affairs. You only have to go through the history of the brutal military dictatorships in different Latin American countries, Argentina, Chile, Brazil, and so many other countries, to know that ultimately not all the help from CIA and Pentagon could keep the local tyrants, the dictators, the military dictators in power. Today we do not talk about Pinochet in Chile, we talk about Pablo Neruda. We talk about the experiments of truth that Salvador Allende and Pablo Neruda tried to carry out in their country. So, people may try their very best to prove that the pen can be bought over or the ink in the pen can get dried up, or those who are wielding it can be extinguished. Those who are thinking this way, they will have to answer to history. And history has always been on the side of the pen, not the sword. The only big regret is that by the time the pen is able to assert itself once more time, so many thousands of innocent lives will have been lost, whether they are Muslims or Christians, whether they are Adivasis, whether they are Dalits, whether they are poor and old and jobless, whether they are women. So many innocent lives will have been lost before the muse is able to show the door to Mammon. I once again thank the organizers of this important event for giving a humble soul like me an opportunity to do two things. One, to pay my pranam to the memory and example of such a one as Professor Vijayan. And two, the second one is to let especially the younger people in this audience, the young men and women, especially to tell them that যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে। Traveler, if no one hears your call to accompany him on his journey, never mind. You walk alone. The traveler will walk alone. Thank you for your time and for your patience.